So our first writer for tonight is going to be Abigail Grimes. All right. And Abigail is a multi-genre author of gripping fiction, poetry, and nonfiction with heart, and the host of Written by Grimes, the podcast. And she is inspired by the world around her. And Abigail's work centers relatable yet flawed women in our contemporary world, their struggles, joy and pain, and all the things they wish their mothers had warned them about. She is the author of the thriller The Violence of Fire and the poetry and prose collection For the Quiet, and the upcoming contemporary domestic thriller Beautiful Things. So many of her books are available. You'll be able to buy them after, but of course you want to get the sample first. So let's bring Abigail Grimes to the BlackLit Durham stage.
As Greg had mentioned, I am a multi-genre author, and I recently added poetry to that list of genres that I'm writing. So my poetry and my creative nonfiction tends to deal a lot with loss, love, and grief. So this evening, I will share with you 2 poems and a short story that move through those themes. So the first poem this evening is for my unborn daughter, and it's called Dear Briar. Dear Briar, it is no surprise that I can't stop thinking of you. The culmination of recent events leads me down a road where you're at the end, but you are not there. You are a ghost. I feel haunted by you. I want you to let me go, yet I am unwilling to know the world without you in it. Everything this week reminded me of you. The specter of you hangs around my shoulders, and yet there is nothing more comforting than conjuring you in my mind's eye. You bring me back to myself. You ground me. You remind me what love is, for you are love. I'll never get to touch you, to feel you in my arms, to brush away your tears, or hear the tinkle of your laugh. But I feel you in me. And while it hurts, I will endure the pain, because it brings me closer to you. I won't forget you. In the stillness of the night, I am heartbroken, but I am grateful. Rest, beloved. Rest. So this next piece is a short story inspired by the term shift widow. A former colleague of mine coined the term, or at least I think she did. It's the first time I heard of it, so I'm going to give her credit for that one. And it's stuck with me ever since. This story is called Impressions. She sat in the living room and stared out the window as the world around her woke up. Snow steadily fell that winter morning, covering roofs, cars, and fence posts in a fluffy white cap. It was almost transcendent. Her mind drifted to grade school when a day like this brought with it the possibility of hearing those magic words, snow day. You could go outside, make snow angels, run and play. Those days had long since passed, but the excitement remained. She gave a passing thought to what her neighbors would think if she were to go outside and make snow angels. She cared too much about what her neighbors thought. George Michael crooned in the background. The seductive tenor of his voice slid down her spine. She didn't know why she did this to herself. No one needs slow jams on a Sunday morning. Her wedding song played next. It threatened to carve a hole in her gut. But she didn't turn it off. She must be a glutton for punishment. The sound of her own voice echoed mournfully in the cavernous space. She closed her lips. She was aware she was talking to herself more nowadays. She couldn't remember a time where she would carry on entire conversations with herself before this. She sometimes worried she was losing touch, but she rationalized it. Sometimes she just needed to hear things out loud. It helped her make better decisions, to be honest about seeing different sides of a story. The truth was not nearly as complex. It was quite simple, really. She spent most of her time alone, and this is how she coped. She rushed around the house to gather and sort the laundry. There was always so much laundry. For a home with virtually only one person in it, it always seemed to need tidying. She felt as though she were being haunted. A ghost lived in her house. It was unnerving at times, but if she were honest, she would also say it was comforting. Those were the times when just knowing she wasn't completely alone was enough. She hadn't laid eyes on him in weeks, her ghost, but she knew he was around. There were always signs: a shoe left askew, a new dish in the sink, and that which haunted her the most: the fog on the bathroom mirror, the dampness in the air, and the steady hum of the fan. When that was the case, she knew she had just missed him. She missed him. She spent most of her time alone. It bred an unsettled ache in her chest, a churn in her gut, a persistent tear that threatened to spill down her cheek. She hadn't signed up for this, but it was routine now. One week he slept upstairs, so as not to disturb her. Another week he slept upstairs. Because it was darker during the day, he slept upstairs. She thought he would have been awake when she got up. It was 7 a.m, yet there was no sign of him. The thought of climbing the stairs to peek in seemed somehow intrusive, like a mother with a teenage child. He'll come down when he's ready, she thought. There were things to do, errands to run. And today she would do them alone. She did them alone most of the time. They were strangers. That was just the reality of the thing. She glanced at the clock on the mantel, a gift from a time long past. The small gears toiled, and the sound drew her attention. She came to realize how quiet the house was. The deafening squeals of these tiny gears forced her out of the chair. Just leave the room. She stood, suddenly feeling foolish. Was this how other people were in their own homes? That question again. What do the neighbors do? Who cares? She did. Her footfalls mocked her as she walked to the kitchen. Slap, slap, slap. The sound of her feet on the engineered hardwood. Even the hardwood was engineered. Contrived. Like the string of vague thoughts that shuffled in her mind, like a deck of cards. A deck comprised entirely of jokers. She just wanted something to eat. It wasn't all she wanted, but would have to do for now. A balanced breakfast came to mind, like the ones on TV. She opened the door and came face to face with an empty fridge. A testament to her loyalty, her foolishness. The knowledge that there were things that needed to be done outweighed all else. They needed groceries. They needed paper towels. There were errands to run, and going weeks without supplies in an effort to ensure that they did these things together no longer made sense. Had it ever made sense? She showered and dressed and called out to advise she would be back soon. She received no response. She was not surprised. In the garage sat his car, his baby. Not having one of flesh and blood, it was the closest thing to fill that void. She hated the thing. She was almost positive he loved it more than he loved her. They'd been together just as long. Hitting the open road, even to run errands, always freed her. She felt in control of her own destiny when she was in her car. Once on the highway, she sped along with the flow of traffic and turned the music up, way up. She sung out loud, unabashed, free. She sung desperate love songs, rock songs, show tunes, everything, anything. The ghost didn't inhabit her car. It couldn't haunt her there. It was tethered to the house. But then guilt. Guilt often accompanied free, always hiding just out of sight, ready to tell, always ready to cause trouble. And there it sat, in the shopping cart, ready to throw a fit. Why couldn't you just wait? You were supposed to do this together. Guilt's whine escalated. It was a sound so powerful, so overwhelming that even though she tried, it would not be ignored. It was a sound only she could hear. She finished the errands and headed home. She wanted to be present when he finally appeared. She wanted to see him, touch him, talk to him, face to face. The heaviness of the apparition closed around her as she pulled into the driveway. But it wasn't until she pulled into the garage she realized her miscalculation. His vehicle was gone. This was not the weekend she thought it was. She wouldn't see him. Not today. She sat in the car, the moment of grief intense, but it would pass. It always did. Her car's upholstery had absorbed more than its fair share of tears over the years. What was one or two more? She blew out an angry, saddened breath and got out of the car. She hauled the heavy grocery bags into the house. At least she wouldn't go hungry while she finished the laundry and cleaned. There were new dishes in the sink. He must have arisen after she left, or who knows, maybe he'd been awake the whole time, lying in wait until she had gone, waiting until it was safe to haunt the grounds freely. It had stopped snowing, and the hours whiled away. She debated the tenets of global warming, fad dieting, and marriage. That was a touchy one. It usually left her red in the face and emotionally drained, feeling as though her body had been turned inside out, nerves exposed. It would be 3 days of this. Bearing down, she made her peace with it. She had no other choice. Work, home, work, and home. The shadows grew longer. They inched along the walls and slid across the floorboards, reaching for her. One more wretched echo would have broken her, but the pillows were back on the bed. The apparition made tangible. They were free to talk, to touch, to be together, but nothing was ever that easy. It would take time to get used to sharing the bed again. The gears of the clock turned loudly. They hadn't much time. In 3 days, the cycle starts anew. So, thank you. Sorry. Thank you. This last piece I would like to share is a poem inspired by all the conversations we should have had while engaging in others. It's called All the Things I Should Have Said on a Tuesday Afternoon. Smiles lay heavy upon our lips, our mouths empty caverns through which jumbled alphabets clamor and spill, forming sharp stalactites and mighty stalagmites, forging treacherous paths. Over time, from below and above, fuse to impressive columns of silence containing all the things never said. As we grow, we tread old patterns on new paths, search through the rubble to find jewels to polish and shine, to string together meaning, to lay like wreaths upon our weary shoulders, strings to pass down so they won't be lost. Adorning ourselves in words in hopes that someone will see, someone will call attention, someone will deem them valuable, all the while knowing they are but glass, shiny and pretty, fragile and meaningless. Sitting together in silence we claim is comfortable, we share a drink in the summer sun. Watching perspiration form on the glass, droplets catch in the sun and sparkle the way conversation should. The heavy smile returns, carrying the weight of deep yearning, desperate to chip away at the facade. Eyes now cloudy with time and knowing, starkly aware that it's too late. Silent vows to do better, brush against reality. There will be no opportunity. There will be no other time. Never to admit We are so terribly alone. Glass beads draped against against my collar. Once yawning caves, now sewn shut. I sit, with all the things I should have said on a Tuesday afternoon.
Keep it going.